Hello children, today we are going to do a new lesson in this video. The name of the lesson is Interdependence. Interdependence in living beings. That is in plants and animals. Now, what is the meaning of interdependence? Interdependence means this big word interdependence means being dependent on each other or one another. Okay? Now, being dependent on one another. Who is dependent on one another? Plants and animals. Now, you know that animals, humans depend on plants for food. Humans, animals, we depend on, humans and animals depend on plants for food. What about the plants? Where do plants get food from? Plants make their own food. Plants make their own food. Plants make their own food. That is why they are called producers. What are they called? Producers. Okay? Now, which part of the plant makes food? I think you know it. It is the leaves. Leaves are called the food factory or the kitchen of the plant. The food is prepared in the leaves. And what is the process of preparing food in the leaves called? It is called photosynthesis. What is it called? Process is called photosynthesis. Where does photosynthesis take place? Photosynthesis takes place in the leaves. Now, most of the leaves are green in color. Why are they green in color? Leaves are green. Why are they green? They are green because of the presence of a pigment called chlorophyll. Leaves are green. They contain a pigment called chlorophyll. Now, you must have seen the leaves of crotons where they are orangish in color, reddish in color. So you must be wondering, where is the chlorophyll? How do these plants prepare food? Do they really have chlorophyll? Yes, they have chlorophyll, they have the green pigment, but this pigment, this green pigment is hidden under the other colored pigment like the red pigment. So crotons also have chlorophyll. They have the green pigment which gets hidden by the colored pigment. For example, the red pigment. Now let us see what are the requirements for photosynthesis. Now the requirements for photosynthesis. Now what is required for photosynthesis? Number one is sunlight. 2, water. 3, carbon dioxide. Here is the plant. And the sun. Okay. Now, what first is sunlight? The leaves absorb light energy from the sun. Now you know the leaves have a pigment called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll has the ability to absorb energy from the sun. So energy from the sun. Absorbed by chlorophyll. What about water? The roots absorb water from the soil. This water is carried through the stem to the leaves. So water is taken from the soil by the roots, carried by the stem to the leaves. What about carbon dioxide? Now on the underside of the leaf, on the lower side of the leaf, there are pores called stomata. On the lower side of the leaf, there are pores called stomata for exchange of gases. So through the stomata, carbon dioxide is absorbed by the leaf, and in the presence of sunlight, photosynthesis takes place. So water, what is required? Water is taken up from the roots. Carbon dioxide from the air. And sunlight or energy from the sun is taken by the leaves for the process of photosynthesis. Now, during the process of photosynthesis, what is given out? See my arrow. What is given out? Oxygen. Oxygen is given out during photosynthesis, and food is formed in the form of, or food is prepared in the form of sugar. food in the form of sugar is produced. Now, food in the form of sugar is used for the growth of the plant. Now, excess food is stored in the or in the form of starch is stored in the leaves, stem, flowers and roots, and we eat these parts of the plant. Now, leaves. What are the leaves that we eat? Spinach is an example. What about stem? Onion. Potato. What about flowers? Cauliflower. What about roots? Carrot, beetroot. These are examples of the parts of the plant where food is stored. Is that clear? So now you know why plants are called now you know why plants are called producers. Next we come to animals. Now we come to animals. Can animals make their own food? No. They are dependent on plants. So they are called animals cannot make their own food. They are dependent on plants. So what are they called? Can we call them producers? No, they are consumers. Animals are called consumers. They feed on plants. Now, depending on their food habit, they are divided into 3 groups. That is herbivores, carnivores and omnivores. Now, who are called herbivores? Herbivores are animals that eat plants. Plant eating. Animals that feed on plants. Examples will be cow, goat, elephant, just to name a few. What about carnivores? Do they eat plants? No, they eat flesh. Carnivores are flesh-eating animals. For example, crocodile, then lion, tiger, then you have the leopard, yes, so many more. What about omnivores? What do they feed on? These feed on both plants and flesh. Examples are us, humans. Then you have the bear, you have the dog, pig, cockroach. All these are omnivores. They feed on plant matter as well as flesh. Now, do you see here? You have herbivores that eat plants. Omnivores are also eating plants and flesh. What about carnivores? They eat flesh. So how are they dependent on plants? We said interdependence is where both depend on each other. So how do the carnivores depend on plants? What flesh are they eating? They are eating the flesh of plant-eating animals. Understood? So here they are indirectly dependent on plants. Is this clear? Now let us go to interdependence. Let us understand how plants and animals are dependent on each other. Interdependence of plants and animals. Now, plants and animals maintain the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Number one will be both, that is plants and animals maintain the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Plants give out oxygen. Plants give out when is oxygen given out? During photosynthesis. So what is done with this oxygen? Who uses the oxygen? It is used by animals and humans. Oxygen that is given out during photosynthesis is used by animals and humans. Animals give out carbon dioxide. Animals and humans give out carbon dioxide. What is this carbon dioxide used for? Used by plants for photosynthesis. Right? See how the balance is maintained. Plants give out oxygen, which is used by us and animals for breathing. We and the animals give out carbon dioxide, which is used by plants for photosynthesis. Another point is animals are directly or indirectly dependent on plants. Now, how directly and indirectly? Herbivores feed on plants. Carnivores are indirectly dependent on plants. Why? Because they feed on the flesh of herbivores. Is that clear? So children, today we shall stop here. So what have you learned today? That plants are producers. Why? Because they prepare their own food by the process called photosynthesis. You also studied what are the raw materials for photosynthesis: sunlight, water and carbon dioxide. You also studied about the green pigment which is present in the leaves that absorbs energy from the sun. You also studied what is given out during photosynthesis, that is oxygen. You also studied what is the food that the plant prepares, that is sugar, which is used for the growth of the plant. Excess sugar is stored in the form of starch. It is stored in the leaves, in the stem, in the root, in the flowers. So it is these parts that we eat as food. You also studied about animals. What are animals called? They are called consumers. Why they are called consumers? Because they cannot make their own food. They depend on plants. You've studied about herbivores, carnivores and omnivores. And you have also studied how plants and animals depend on each other. Thank you, children.